Hello, and welcome back to the Life on the Wrist podcast. The Geneva auctions that took place last month were a great success and definitely boosted the feelings of the vintage watch community. There was a lot of excitement on Instagram and other social media platforms, as well as locally in Geneva, about watches and all things about them. There were some really nice record results that we saw. Also some very interesting pieces that sold to new collectors, and I'm sure that the collectors who have those pieces now are very excited with their purchases. As I mentioned, most auction houses had successful events, although it is worth noting that Christie's had a bit of a problem with their online bidding platform that affected their only watch auction. It appeared that the auction house was hit by a cyber attack. I did get a notification from the auction house that they are through all of that and have extended the time on some of their online only auctions, and they don't expect there to be an impact on their upcoming auctions across all of their categories of products. Today I thought we would take a look forward at the New York auctions for the major auction houses and pull a couple of my favorite pieces. At the time of recording, Christie's had not released their catalog, so we'll definitely cover their catalog in a future episode, but today we're going to focus on Phillips and Sotheby's and some of the pieces that they have coming up. Before I get started, I wanted to just kind of give an overview at a high level. After looking through the catalog of Phillips and Sotheby's, I'm actually a lot more drawn to the catalog of Sotheby's. I think they have some really interesting vintage pieces, not to say that Phillips doesn't. They always curate an incredible collection of pieces with a lot of great provenance, incredible condition, and really varied design and brands and aesthetics, and I think that's really quite exciting. As always, they've curated a wonderful catalog, but I think I just connect with the watches that are being auctioned by Sotheby's a little bit more. They are auctioning off an extremely rare, and this is one of their cover lots, Philippe Dufour Duality, which of course is a really exceptional piece. But I do think that I just connect with the vintage pieces being sold at Sotheby's a little bit more. I'll kick it off with the Phillips auction. This is the New York auction that's going to be taking place on the 8th and 9th of June. There will be a viewing in New York City from June 5th to June 7th. There's also a tour going on right now where the watches will be exhibited in London, LA, Singapore, and Geneva, as well as Hong Kong. So if you are in any of those locations, I hope that you've at least had an opportunity to see some of the pieces. So looking at some of the lots, I'll start off with the first one that sort of caught my eye. What was really exciting is it looks like there are a pocket watch sort of resurgence. Both Sotheby's and Phillips have some really great pocket watches that are being sold. I'll start off with lot number 27, which is a Patek Philippe yellow gold open face pocket watch with minute repeater and split second chronograph complications. The watch dates to 1925, has these really large Arabic numerals with leaf hands, which of course are extremely attractive. For me, it's really exciting to see that pocket watches are being sold a little bit more, and people are paying a little bit more attention to them. For this specific watch, it's a relatively rare complication, the split-second chronograph mechanism at least, to find in a pocket watch with fewer than 200 known examples from Patek Philippe. Obviously, having the minute repeater makes it incredibly rare and desirable. Overall, the watch looks like it's in pretty good condition. It comes with the original certificate of origin as well, which I think is quite incredible. Movement looks pretty good. The condition of the case also looks fairly good. There is some nice oxidation, which of course is something that I am very attracted to. So a very nice pocket watch. Next up is lot number 29. This is a little bit of something different, which is a oversized, possibly unique yellow gold split second chronograph from UDC Nardin with an enamel dial. Guillaume balance and hinged caseback from 1915. When I say oversized, the watch measures 52 millimeters in diameter, which is exceptionally large. It also has a pretty storied background. It was acquired by the owner in 1988, and has quite a rich history. The present watch was made upon special request sometime between 1918 and 1925. There is another example in steel that's known, with a movement number that's only 3 digits away from the present example, which is, I think, quite incredible. It's really a remarkable split-second chronographer's watch from the brand. It was not actually a converted pocket watch with soldered lugs, which many people believe, but it's actually a pocket watch movement that's cased as a wristwatch, which makes it even more interesting. What's really cool is, obviously, if you take a look at the movement of this piece, you'll see the Guillaume balance with blue steel hairsprings, which minimizes errors across temperatures, and was the ultimate escapement for precision timekeeping, and is extremely rare today to find. For me, I think this is a very attractive piece, one that sort of defines the history of Ulysse Nardin, and has beautiful aesthetics across the entire watch. For those who are collectors of Ulysse Nardin, obviously this is going to be quite desirable. I wanted to talk about lot number 31, which is quite an interesting Patek Philippe. It's a reference 1532 in a rectangular case. What's really interesting about this specific piece is it's a 18-karat pink gold watch from 1942 with a case length of 34 millimeters. What's quite this watch is comes from the family of the original owner, who also had owned the Patek Philippe reference 1518 that's offered in this catalog as well. What's quite interesting about this piece is it looks like the dial is in relatively interesting condition. I wouldn't say it's the most clean dial. It does have a little bit of age on it, but it is an opportunity for those who are participating in the auction to get quite an interesting watch. For me, it's kind of counter to what Patek Philippe typically sells. You normally see these pieces that have incredibly clean dials, extremely strong cases. Not that this one doesn't. You still can see quite clearly the hallmarks on the case of this watch, so it still is in relatively good condition. I'd just say that the dial is a little bit different than what we typically are used to from Phillips. Next up, I wanted to talk about lot number 39. It is a watch that for me is one of my absolute favorites. It's a Patek Philippe reference 1463 Taste Tondi in yellow gold from 1952. Of course, this is the famed sort of waterproof case chronograph that's extremely attractive and very, very sought after. Of the 176 yellow gold pieces that were produced of the 1463, only about 18 have been found fitted with a two-tone silver dial, which this piece has. An iconic piece. Overall condition of the case is also quite strong. You can still see the hallmark on the underside of the lug. I want to see this piece in person, to be honest, to see how the hallmarks or how the case looks overall. It does look quite sharp and maintains a lot of the sort of brushed and polished finishings that you would see. But I think obviously you want to see these pieces in person before you sort of pull the trigger. I think it's an exceptional example and a really attractive piece. The second to last watch I wanted to talk about from Phillips is a Rolex reference 6264 in 14 karat yellow gold with the Tiffany stamp. It's from 1971. Overall, I'd say this piece is fairly attractive. the case looks relatively strong, I'd say, and having the Tiffany stamp is quite a feat, making it a little bit more rare than a common 62-64. I think this one will do fairly well at auction. The last piece I wanted to talk about is, for me, I think one of the absolute gems of the Phillips auction, and that is lot number 105, which is a Rolex 6102 with a yellow gold case and blue enamel dial. The blue enamel dial is really what stands this watch apart. It almost makes it difficult to read the Rolex Oyster Perpetual name on the dial of this piece. This watch was manufactured in 1953 and has an 18-karat yellow gold case with Bombay lugs, which are very, very attractive. The watch measures 32.5 millimeters in diameter, so it's a little bit on the small side. But what makes it really, really special is that renowned Genevan dial maker Stern Frere made stunning dials such as these, and each one is designated with its own code. The first number would be the company code, which in this instance is Rolex, followed by a star of the dial maker, which is Stern, and then the final is the actual job number, which is specific to each dial. What's really also quite beautiful about this piece is that there are, around the minute track, it's made out of hand engraved pearls, sort of giving it a little bit of a contrast with the dial. This is an exceptionally rare Rolex, and I think this piece is going to be a standout performance in my mind for the brand. The case is in overall extremely great condition, very, very sharp edges. I'd say the top of the case, where the Bombay lugs are a little bit soft, but when you turn it over, the lugs on the underside are very, very sharp. And I really think this is one of the standout watches from Phillips at the auction. So very excited to see what this specific lot does. But if you haven't noticed, a lot of the pieces that I've discussed, besides I think this Rolex, are pieces that we've discussed at length previously. And there isn't anything too standout-ish in my mind about this auction. I think that it'll still be a solid auction, as they always are, and Phillips, has curated, of course, watches of really great quality. As a reminder, the auction is on the 8th and 9th of June, so if you are in the New York area or want to watch in for the auction, be sure to keep your weekend free. Next up, I wanted to discuss the important watches auction that is taking place on the 5th of June, but from Sotheby's. It's a live auction taking place in their New York location. For me, there were some really interesting pieces that are being sold, I think a little bit more in line with what I look for and what gets me excited about watches, so I'll dive straight in. First off is lot number 37. This is, again, sort of following up on the pocket watch theme. There are many other pocket watches in the Sotheby's as well as the Phillips catalog that are worth discussing, but I wanted to call out a Cartier pocket watch. It's an octagonal, open-faced watch manufactured in 1925, manufactured by Cartier France, with a really beautiful white dial that's aged very, very gently. And then you have this really nice enamel dial, and then you have around the octagonal case, you have this bezel, if you want to describe it that way, with Roman numerals and flowers, flower heads, kind of between the numerals, which I think is extremely attractive. I think pocket watches are definitely kind of coming up a little bit more, and I think this specific example from Cartier is incredibly beautiful, and I think hits home with a lot of what watch collectors are interested in at this current moment. Cartier pocket watches, I think there's a lot of really great sort of intersections with this specific watch. Next up, I'll talk about lot number 94, which is honestly couldn't get any better. It's lot number 94, which is a reference 565 from Patek Philippe. It's a stainless steel 565 with Breguet numbers, made in 1949. The watch 35 millimeters in diameter, and obviously has a lot of the the things that I find extremely attractive. It does have an engraving on the case back that says John G. Hoad, which was likely the owner. I would say that the overall condition of the case appears to be a little bit soft in pictures. I think it's definitely seen a polishing wheel. So that's probably one thing that I'd say is a little bit, kind of lets this watch a little bit down. But overall, the dial has aged really nicely, and I think offset with the brigade numbers and really beautiful hands, I think it looks really nice. I would just say it does look like there's been a little bit of polish on this specific piece. Again, you want to see these pieces in person to really examine the lugs, and the case, so that's worth doing. But again, a really nice example. Next up, I wanted to talk about a really nice reference 10 from Patek Philippe that this is selling from 1913. It's an oversized yellow gold rectangular curved watch with these beautiful exploded numerals, Arabic numerals, which have luminescent material on the inside that have also aged really nicely. This is a wonderful example of what Patek Philippe was manufacturing at the beginning of the 20th century, and is in my mind quite nice condition. The lugs are really attractive with those kind of interesting screws that are on the outside, very subtle screws as well, which I think makes it a wonderful example. And for me, I think probably my favorite lot from Sotheby's. A really close second is lot number 99. This is a Vacheron Constantin reference 4083. It's a pink gold chronograph wristwatch from 1940. What's really cool about this present lot is that it's a 18 karat pink gold watch with a pink dial. Obviously, you can think of 1463s with pink on pinks or something like that are extremely attractive to many collectors. This one from Vacheron Constantin. The reference 4083 is one of the most elusive models from the brand. It was introduced in the late 1930s and was made in exceedingly limited quantities and distinguished by its really distinctive double-hooded lugs that integrate into the case. As I mentioned, this is a pink-on-pink version with a pink two-tone sector dial. Adding to the rarity of this piece, this model features a unique 45-minute counter, deviating from the conventional 30-minute counter on the watch, and scholars estimate a production of merely 6 examples in yellow gold and 12 in pink. So a very rare Vacheron Constantin. What's really cool is it comes with I think what is an original box, and for me, the overall condition of the case looks fairly strong. Again, would have to take a loop to it to really examine fully, but the pictures look pretty good, and overall a really attractive piece. I mentioned pink on pink. There's a 1436 from Patek Philippe, which is lot number 102. It's a pink on pink split second chronograph that I think is in quite nice condition. A lot of the times these pieces will have either toothpick lugs or very soft features, but I actually think that this watch has a fairly strong case. There's probably been some polishing. If you look at the case, you'll see that the lug holes do appear to be a little bit on the larger side, and the hallmark on the side of the case seems to be a little bit soft, but at least this wasn't sort of abused by a polishing wheel. I think that's always something that can be a little bit scary when looking at these pieces. For me, it's a very nice example, and being a pink on pink makes it exceedingly rare. There's approximately 140 examples of this model were made predominantly in yellow gold. The pink gold versions were very rare. Less than 9 publicly known examples are surviving today, and even fewer of those 9 have pink dials, which makes this watch rare, mythical, and quite significant. The last piece I wanted to talk about was actually kind of a cool modern or neo-vintage piece. It's lot number 109, which is a Rolex reference 16570 Explorer 2. You're probably thinking, why are you calling this specific piece out? The reason I'm doing that is if you look closely at the dial, you'll see VC and A, which is the retail stamp of Van Cleef & Arpels, which I think is kind of cool to see on this type of piece. A lot of the times you see, Tiffany signed Rolexes or Patek Philippe's, but it's kind of cool to see Van Cleef & Arpels signed dials in one of these coming up at auction, which I think makes it just a little bit more interesting. So I thought that was a really cool example. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed kind of hearing about my takes from the Phillips and the Sotheby's auctions this week. Let me know which which lot at these two auctions are your favorite. I'd love to hear your thoughts. There'll be links in the show notes to all of the lots that we spoke about during this podcast. So be sure to check out the show notes where you can see pictures of these pieces as we speak through them. As I mentioned, we will cover the Christie's Important Watches auction for New York in a coming podcast. They just hadn't released their catalog at the time of recording, so stay tuned for that. If you are new to Life on the Wrist, be sure to follow this podcast so you're the first one notified when we do upload a podcast. If you want to get more content from Life on the Wrist, be sure to see the show notes, and you can go to our YouTube channel or our website and see some more of our stuff over there. If you are feeling generous and wouldn't mind rating this podcast, it really does help me out. With this said, guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and until next time.